Hello, everybody, and welcome again to Nerd of the Third Power, your one-stop shop for all things nerdy and awesome. I'm your host and master of ceremonies, Dr. Gonzo. With me, as always, this epic quest of awesomeness is our resident anime goddess, the Cat. Cat, how are you doing?
I am okay.
Oh, well, that's good. Usually you're coming in barely alive, so I guess it was an especially good day today.
It wasn't as terrible as yesterday. It was still bad, but it wasn't as terrible as yesterday.
I think there's very few things that could be as bad as yesterday. As we record this on Tuesdays, for those who don't know what we're talking about.
Yeah. It's been a weird week and a half for me, emotionally dealing with not my problems, but my friends' problems. And trying to be supportive when I'm super empathetic and that shit happens to my friends and I'm just over in the corner crying all the time. So that's been my last week and a half. And yeah, yesterday was definitely took the cake of emotionally broken and tired and just needing to sleep. So today I'm feeling better.
Yeah. So, well, we're taking things kind of easy again this week. Bryan is still off in Orlando. He says he's there for work, but I'm not convinced he isn't just spending his time trying to break into Disney World and or Universal Studios. So, yeah. And Skyblaze is tuckered out from work, so it's just going to be the two of us tonight. And we're going to be doing something that I don't think we've done yet in 2017, and that's Topics from a Hat, where we pull from the audience things that they would like to see us talk about, or maybe pull up some suggested topics that were sent to us that we never really quite got to or really couldn't fill out a whole hour. So the way this works is basically we have a whole bunch of topics. They are written on slips, which are then placed into a hat, which Cat will pull from randomly, and then we'll talk about them for about 5 minutes. So, Cat, if you get the hat, I will get the timer.
All right. Got the hat.
Okay. And let me set up my phone's timer app, which is a lot less intuitive than it should be. All right. So, what is our first topic from the hat?
All right. Let's see. All right. Topic number 1. YouTubers and web shows we are fans of.
All right. Clock is rolling. So, I guess do you want to go ahead and start, or should I?
I'll start.
Okay.
I thought you were going to give me go.
Oh, well, no, the clock's already going, so.
Shit. Okay, we got this. The only YouTube channels that I devoutly follow are Secrets of the Citadel, which is a Game of Thrones YouTube discussion channel that I've talked about before, and Hot Pepper Gaming, which I'm not a gamer, but I really enjoy watching video game voice actors and fans suffer by eating hot peppers and talk about video games.
Okay, I'm now intrigued. How does this work? Is this like every time someone says a secret word, they have to eat a habanero?
Oh, no. So what it is they'll get somebody, and so I got into this because of Matt Mercer, who is an anime voice actor, video game voice actor. You know him. Anyway, Matt Mercer was on there one time, and that's what got me into it. But it'll be somebody, a guest, or whoever runs the show will eat some pepper or another, something really spicy, a habanero or whatever, and then they will review a game, and they're not allowed to drink any water or eat anything else until they are done reviewing the game. And it's basically watching them suffer under sweating and hiccuping and crying in some cases. And if they've been on the show more than once, usually they escalate it. So they'll eat another, the same pepper and then put hot sauce on it, or they'll eat a hotter pepper and review another game. And it's really, really fun and in a sort of sadistic way.
They're madmen. Madmen, I say.
Madness.
Okay, well, let's see. Looking through my list, I follow a whole bunch of different channels. Some standouts. I'm a big fan of Wisecrack. They do a lot of philosophical examinations of shows that I really love. So they do they examine shows like Rick and Morty and South Park and compare the themes in the show to ideas that have been put forward by philosophers over the centuries. So I really enjoy those videos. They also do a series called Earthling Cinema, which is a film analysis series that I really enjoy. I follow 8-Bit Ryan and his his other channel, 8-Bit Gaming. They basically do Let's Plays, and I started following them because I got tired of watching Markiplier do the same damn thing over and over in his Five Nights at Freddy's Let's Plays. So the 8-Bit guys, they play a lot of horror games that I would never get around to playing otherwise. So I kind of watch those to get a look at what's out there. I follow, a guy named Gopher. He's real big in the Bethesda modding community, and he does mod spotlights for Skyrim and the Fallout series, which is really fun. And I'll tell you the one that gets the raised eyebrows every time I mention it, because I'm not otherwise into this culture in any way, shape, or form, but I'm a big fan of regular car reviews, which is basically this guy just goes around and he reviews cars that, instead of reviewing like hot rods or sports cars, he reviews cars, regular people would buy and what, kind of person would buy this type of car. So that's the one that gets a lot of raised eyebrows every time I tell people I follow it, because I'm not into car culture in any way, shape, or form outside of that. So, don't ask me about, my opinion on, a Toyota 86 Sprinter Turino, because I won't have one. I like to follow Philip DeFranco for news, just because he's got none of the bullshit that all the mainstream news shows have. I'm also a big fan of a guy named, and I hope I pronounced this right, Shadiversity, who he actually examines. He's a scholar of medieval combat and warfare, and he examines how different fantasy series portray medieval combat. And I got into it when he examined the city of Whiterun from Skyrim, and would it be an actual defensible city? So that's definitely worth taking a look into. And let's see, 40 seconds left. Do you have anything left to add, Kat?
Jonathan Young. I follow Jonathan Young, who does a bunch of covers of songs, and he's amazing and beautiful.
Okay, and let's see. 30 seconds left. I'm a big fan of a guy named Jaywitz, who he covers Nintendo stuff, and does a lot of Pokemon retrospectives. And of course, Weird Al Yankovic, who's always a good time. I recommend that anybody follow him. And that's the clock.
Woo! Okay.
All right. So resetting the clock. What's our next topic? And of course, all the guys that we just listed, I'll try and get links underneath the description to all these guys so you can check them out. Okay. So yeah, all right. So what's our next topic there?
All right, next topic is things that were better about the way comics, anime, and video games used to be made.
Oh man, well, I wish Brian was here. But anyway, starting the clock. Okay, so I guess I'll start this one. Let's see. Things that I like about how games were made in ye olden times versus how they're made now. I'll tell you what, I really miss the days when companies weren't obligated to put out a new sequel every single fucking year. Of course, the big offenders for this are EA and Ubisoft, and then the Call of Duty, whatever company has Call of Duty now. We've got to have a new Call of Duty every single year. We've got to have a new Assassin's Creed every single year. And I've spoken many times about my eternal hatred for EA Sports, about how every single new Madden or NHL or NBA game is just the previous year's game with updated stats. I usually have a rule, which is, don't talk down for what people decide to spend their money on. But that's EA Sports games are the one times I break that rule, because I feel like if you're spending 60 bones for, NBA 2K18 when you already have NBA 2K17, I feel like you're being robbed. So I kind of miss the days when companies didn't pressure developers to put out a new game every single year, and developers could take time and really put, some, real care and attention into developing their titles. I can go, I remember back when BioWare announced that they were delaying Mass Effect 3. Not Mass Effect 3, Mass Effect 2. And the fan base was like, okay, yes, take the time you need to make this game great, because we don't want this game to be rushed. And the same thing happened when they delayed Mass Effect 3 for a few months, but that story didn't end as happily. But we need not go into that. What about you, Kat? What are some things that you miss about ye olden days in anime?
Oh gosh, I miss it being hand drawn. I miss being able to collect cells. Not that I ever got into collecting cells, but it was always really cool to flip through a book of cells and, you know, go like, oh, I remember this scene exactly, and to be able to see where the pieces of it came together was always really nice. I think because it used to cost more to make an anime because it was all hand drawn. So they were a lot more careful in many cases about what they were doing, and not really being super wasteful of their time. I say this, but there used to be just so much recycled animation, so that part really wasn't great. A lot of anime is just playing better today, to be honest, from a technical standpoint. Actually, right now, one of the problems that they're having is that Japan is cranking out so much anime that the dubbing is having a hard time actually keeping up with it. So a lot of the dubbing companies now are cranking out dubs as fast as they can, and they're overworking their actors. And it's gotten not so critical, but it's gotten pretty rough for the actors and the writers who have to keep cranking out scripts really fast. And whereas before, you know, there was still a lot of pressure, but there weren't as many shows to work on. So it felt like before, you know, it would take like a year for a show to come out, and it would be because it would just take so long to get one volume out. And that's not necessarily better, because I like having everything out at once, but you knew that they were spending more time on it.
Okay, and we got 1 minute left, so I want to go back to what you said about collecting cells. I'll tell you something I really miss about the old days in gaming. Actual like feelies, which for those who aren't old enough to remember that term, back when PC adventure games were all text-based, they had no graphics. The game would come with these little physical objects called feelies that would tie into the game some way. It might be like, you know, a picture that holds a clue to one of the game's puzzles, or maybe the glasses that the game's lead character wore or something. And you used to get these things as you know, in the game, but then later, once games started getting graphics, for a while you'd get them as pre-order bonuses. So you could, you know, if you pre-ordered a game, you got something cool, like, you know, the t-shirt that the main character wears, or maybe like one that stands out in my mind was for Resident Evil, you got a controller shaped like a chainsaw. And I miss those days. I want to bring back feelies. And that's time. All right, so what's the next topic out of the hat?
Okay, let's see. We got all right, here's one. Our thoughts on Orville and the New Enterprise.
Well, I think they meant Star Trek Discovery, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah, sorry, that's what my brain meant when I wrote this down. Yes, Star Trek Discovery, and I wrote Enterprise because my brain is like, that's what the ship's name is. Because Orville is the name of the ship and Enterprise is the name. Anyway, please give us your thoughts, because I have not seen either one of them. Okay,
well, the clock's running. I have actually been really enjoying the so far. I tell you, the Fox marketing department criminally undersold this series, because for those who don't know what it is, it's basically Seth MacFarlane's jab at making a more lighthearted Star Trek. But Fox was selling it in their advertisements as being like a Family Guy style comedy in space. But I tell you, that is not at all what it is. First episodes are kind of, but episodes 3 and 4, there's 4 episodes out so far, are both, you know, really heavy hitting type episodes. The third episode deals with, there's a race in the series called the Mocklins, who, when they're introduced to us, when one of their members is introduced to us in the first episode, he says that all members of his species are male. And the third episode deals with the fact that, you know, just had a child. The child's been born female, and he's now confronting this idea that, you know, not only are all members of his species not born male, but that there might be that there's actually been sort of a cover-up of this fact throughout his race's history, and he's got to come to grips with that. And it was it handled the issue, you know, contrary to what you might think from Seth MacFarlane, it dealt with that with some real nuance. It managed to be entertaining, and it managed to make its point without being, heavy-handed and preachy, which so many shows, so much of media in general is wont to do nowadays. And then episode 4 was a nice little send-up of a Harlan Ellison story called Phoenix Without Ashes, which is where the crew discovers this generational ship who the inhabitants have been living on it for so long they've forgotten that they're actually on a spaceship. So they think that this ship is actually their whole world and their whole universe. And what I liked about the themes of that episode, because there's a religious leader who is trying to suppress any thought that there might be something beyond the confines of the ship, is that it doesn't do it as a straight one-to-one allegory for anything that's going on right now. It could be applied or interpreted in so many different ways. And I don't know, as I've gotten older, I've gotten to really dislike allegory in favor of applicability, something that could be applied or interpreted in many different ways, as opposed to just a straight one-to-one substitution. But yeah, I've been really impressed so far with the Orville, and it still has its comedic moments. Some moments kind of just, haha, okay, all right, you get your chuckles. But no, it really. If I had to pin it down, I'd say imagine Galaxy Quest with if we were actually watching the show Galaxy Quest and not just seeing a bunch of actors. Star Trek Discovery, I've not had a chance to see, but I've not heard a lot of good things about it. Everyone that I know that I've talked to who's seen it, they don't really have a whole lot of good things to say about it. The chief criticism that I'm hearing is that it feels more like the main character's revenge fantasy than an actual Star Trek story. I've heard a couple people say the main character comes off as a bit of a prejudiced maniac at times, which, I mean, I guess they're not old enough to remember Picard and his hate boner for the Borg. So, but what's interesting to me about these two shows is sort of the disconnect between the critics and the audiences, because critics are loving Discovery, but really bashing on the Orville, whereas audiences don't seem to be responding very well to Discovery, but Orville is sitting at about a 90% audience positive rating on Metacritic. So I don't know what that tells you. I honestly don't know what that tells you about where the two shows are going. I think, honestly, a big reason why people are tearing at Discovery is because of how CBS is handling it and putting it behind a paywall. So, which, yeah, I'll trumpet that horn as loud as anyone else. That's a really stupid idea, especially when people are getting it on Netflix outside of the U.S. It's only in the U.S. that we have to pay for Discovery. So. And that's time on that. So what's our next topic, Kat?
All right, our next topic is most satisfying character deaths. Okay, you sickos.
All right, clock started. 5 minutes. Okay,
I will lead this one with Game of Thrones, Olenna Tyrell. She's not a character I wanted to see die, but the way she went out with being the queen of sass that she is, being like, tell Cersei I want her to know it was me that killed her son, and dead. Amazing. Absolutely, what a wonderful send-off to such a queen bitch character. Just love her so much. I'm trying to think of a good anime character death or something, but none of them are good. They're all sad and terrible.
Well, while you ruminate on that, I've got from one of my favorite movies, Alien, and that was the death of Burke, the corporate guy, who earlier in the film he locks Ripley and the little girl in a room with a pair of face huggers that he set loose on them because he wants to impregnate them with aliens, then freeze them for the trip home, and then hawk the aliens off to the company's weapons division. And there's a bit late in the movie where all hell's broken loose. The aliens have broken past their barriers and they're getting ready to rip everybody to shreds. And Burke, like the coward he is, runs off down the hall and locks everybody in. And as he's backing into this door in this empty room, it opens up and there's an alien right behind him. And you don't see what happened to him, but you can imagine. And part of what makes this death so funny to me is I remember reading an interview with the actor who played Burke, and he was talking about how when he went to the Aliens premiere when he went to the premiere of the film, he brought his mother. And when it showed the scene where he got killed by the alien, he looked over, and his mother was just nodding sagely. Like, yes, you deserve that.
Like, yes, this is how I knew it would happen all along.
This is justice. All right, come up with a good anime death.
I had it and then it flew off. Fuck. God, kill me.
It flew off like a bird.
It really did. Oh no, okay, I remember it. My favorite anime of all time is Slayers, and in season 1, the big bad is Rezo the Red Priest, and once you get to pretty close to the end of, the mid first season, you find out that Rezo is actually possessed by the Dark Lord Shabernigdo, and that the only way to stop Shabernigdo is to kill Rezo. And it feels like, okay, yeah, this guy's a bad guy. But at the end, Rezo sort of like wakes up and realizes what's happening and helps them actually defeat Shabernigdo. And it's really sad because he was actually related to one of the main characters, and he's sort of taking responsibility for things that really weren't his fault, but he still felt guilty about. And Rezo sort of comes back throughout it, and if you ignore the newer series, which I do, it's such a sweet and sad but kind of timeless character death. I really hate but love when characters are possessed and they allow themselves to be killed in order to defeat whatever is possessing them. It's a little bit of an anime trope. I don't know how often that happens in other things, but it's always very distressing, and it's the right amount of emotion you should be getting.
Oh, Diablo 2 built a whole story out of it.
Oh, God. Of course it did.
Yep. Well, I mean, it's a game where you're fighting the devil, so, it's got to crop up at some point. I'm not even joking about that. You're literally fighting the devil.
Like you do.
Let's see. Okay, we still got 1 minute. Another really satisfying character death. Oh, God, let's see.
I got another Game of Thrones one, Peter Baelish. It wasn't quite how I imagined Baelish would go out, but after 7 seasons, him getting his throat cut by Arya was definitely worth it. God, was it worth it. Begging for his life, too, which was great.
I'll tell you what was a really good one. Seconds we have left. I just watched this movie earlier this week, just for the hell of it. Judge Frollo in Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Oh God!
Where he's talking. His last scenes are him. He's talking all grandiose about how righteous he is, and the Lord shall smite the wicked. And then the gargoyle he's standing on makes a snarly face and gives out underneath him, and he winds up falling into the flames. It was just a really satisfying way to end his character. And that's time. Okay. Shut up. Okay. All right. What's our next topic?
All right. Let's see. We've got I almost quit this medium. So something that happened in anime, video games, comic books that almost made you just pack it up and go.
All right. Clock is starting. Oh geez, I got to really think about this one. You go first.
Okay. I mean, I would never really quit anime, but the excessive moe trend that happened a few years ago was pretty close to, it sort of tapered me away from anime for a little while, where I became a lot pickier about what I was watching, because everything was like like super moe or a tsundere character. And I really am so sick of those two tropes, because that was all we were getting for a while. It was like so much of the same thing. And anime is, people are always going to complain, well, if you've seen one anime, you've already seen everything else. Like, all anime is the same. And that's just not true. But there is a lot of garbage out there. And unfortunately, garbage became really hot for a minute there. And it was pretty obnoxious.
Okay. Let's see. This kind of made me again, I'm like Kat. I would never quit gaming. completely. But there was a time where I kind of stepped away from it for a bit, and that was in the mid to late 2000s, before I got a gaming PC and was limited strictly to consoles. I got kind of tired of the fact that just about everything that was coming out was all first-person shooters. And I love shooter games. FPS is one of my favorite genres in gaming of all time. But you could be eating nothing but chocolate. You may love chocolate, but if you eat nothing but chocolate for so long, you're eventually going to get tired of it. And I eventually got tired of just everything coming out being either a first-person shooter or a fucking sports game. Fortunately, about that time, that was when the indie gaming boom was just getting started, and I built my first real gaming PC and got to play some of these games like Dust and Elysian Tale, or oh god, what was that one? I got to go look through my Steam list. Deathspank, that was it. Stuff like Deathspank, Dust and Elysium Tale, Deadlight. Fez, I got to see that, there was actually, some creativity still being exercised beyond just, okay, here's a gun, you're playing Space Marine number 972, go kill all the things that are moving that aren't you. So, that was, and I'll tell you, now there has been time where I've quit playing a genre of game, and that's, I won't play any modern war shooters anymore after playing Spec Ops: The Line. Which I've talked about before on the show, and how it basically, it took all the tropes that the modern warfare games were playing so, cavalier with, and showing the real world consequences of some of those things. Most famously, the white phosphorus scene, and I was like, no, I don't feel right playing these games anymore. I'll still fire up Spec Ops: The Line and play through it every now and again when I absolutely want to depress myself. But I can't play modern war shooters anymore. Not to disparage those who do, but it's just not my world anymore. So we still got about a minute and a half left on this one. Kat, do you have anything? Any other points where you almost threw your hands up?
Not so much. No, sorry, I could never quit you, anime.
Okay, so, I guess just awkward silence for the next minute and 10 seconds.
I mean, I definitely almost quit anime conventions because drama.
And you have the floor.
I almost quit anime conventions because drama. And that's, how much more can you say? If you ever work an anime convention, it is nothing but drama. Most of the time that's worthwhile, but I, at one point, reached a point where it was not worth it.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I got to watch her reach this point, and I kept. I think the line that I kept saying was like, you need to learn to say no to all these anime conventions that ask you to volunteer. And the point where I realized that you were actually starting to reach a breaking point was where I said it to you, and you were like, I'm starting to think you may be right.
No, I always knew I needed to say no, but it was the obligation of, I really can't. Anime conventions are hard and kind of addictive. So don't ever work for one if you can help it.
Okay, all right. So, all right, we got 8 seconds left, so I guess just awkward silence.
3, 2, 1.
And that's time. All righty, what's our next topic?
Okay, let's see. Reaching into the hat. We've got, okay, this is almost related. This is still about your mediums, but mediums that actually broke the mold. Things that stood out really, really from other things of the same medium. Okay. Sorry, that was a very poor way to explain what this was. All
right, clock is running. See all my previous comments regarding Spec Ops: The Line.
Spec Ops: The Line.
No, actually, I'll tell you the game that really opened my eyes to role playing games, to RPGs, and that was Super Mario RPG: Legend of the Seven Stars. And I want to say it was 1996 that came out. It was the last Mario game released for the Super Nintendo, and that was the one that Nintendo and Square actually teamed up on. And previous to that, the only RPG I'd ever played was Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, which, Zelda's a great game, but up to that point, they were kind of light on the story. But Mario RPG was the first game I played that had like a really, a real story to speak of and a real narrative and a real arc to its characters. And I wound up falling so much in love with these characters that they inhabited. And I was like, I was talking with a friend of mine on the schoolyard after playing through it, and it's like, yeah, there's RPGs are actually a type of game. And I was like, really? There's more like this? And he was like, yeah, let me lend you this game called Final Fantasy III. And then I really started to see how great a tool for storytelling video games could be. And ever since then, I've always been really drawn to the story-based games as opposed to just the score all the high points games, which is why you never see me play stuff like League of Legends or Overwatch. Although I'm told both have like a really deep lore system behind them. But that was the first thing that really introduced me to the possibilities of storytelling in video games. So what about you? What's an anime that really blew your mind?
Oh gosh, there was one that I reviewed a couple of years ago that really opened my eyes to anime films that are not Ghibli, because I've said this before, but I don't like Studio Ghibli films. There's no rational explanation of why. I just don't find them entertaining to me, and they're beautiful films, but I just don't care. I've never enjoyed any of their stories or any of their characters at all, really. But I watched a movie called 5 centimeters per second, which I believe is a Makoto Shinkai film, and the animation of it was unlike anything I'd ever seen. It was just so beautiful, so detailed. Some of it just looked so realistic. Like, I was just completely blown away. I would pause scenes just to see if it was rotoscoped or actually animated. Like, it just looked so real without ever feeling totally out of place. And the story of 5 centimeters per second is actually very good and bittersweet. And it's not this super inspiring, happy, everybody has a happy ever after kind of story. And that kind of brought home that, yeah, there are really fantastic films outside of Ghibli, and Miyazaki is not the end-all be-all of anime films. And it wasn't until a few years later, I mean, a lot of people liked the film, but Makoto Shinkai's works didn't get super popular, I think, in mainstream America until a few years later. And if you've never seen any of his works, you really owe it to yourself to just find one or two of them and just watch them, because they are unparalleled in beauty.
Okay. And I'll tell you, I know Brian's not here to talk about comics, but I'll tell you about a book that I read that really opened my eyes to the possibilities within the comic book realm, and that's Scott McCloud's Understanding Comics, which is a critical and philosophical examination of comics as a medium. But here's the kicker: the whole thing is itself done as a comic book. So he's actually illustrating these concepts as he's explaining them to you. And it was just a really brilliantly done book, and there's no really way for me to accurately describe it. It's one of those books you really have to pick up and read to get the full experience out of. But it really opened my eyes to the idea of comic books as being an actual storytelling device, and not just funny papers about men in tights beating up supervillains. So. Okay, yeah, and that's we got 10 seconds left. You got anything else to add to this topic?
No, nothing in 10 seconds. Sorry.
Okay, then I guess I'll just fill the time by saying a bunch of funny words. Bingo, boingo, whoopsie knickers, and that's time.
All right. Well, that was that.
Okay, what's the next topic out of the hat?
All right, let's see. All right, we've got Neo Yokio,
and that's the clock.
Fine, okay. Neo Yokio is Jaden Smith made it or produced or directed it. I'm not sure. Jaden Smith was involved in it. An anime series, Netflix original. And it is so controversial because either it is the worst thing you've ever seen in your life, or it is actually secretly brilliant, and there is no in between. It mostly got panned by my friends
And which side you fall of is influenced very heavily by which side of Tumblr you tend to frequent, from what I've read.
I don't know what that has anything to do with. I really feel like your ability to watch something drunk is actually a great indicator of how you feel about this, because this would be amazing to watch drunk. I've only seen one episode so far, and I know it's not very long, so I think I'm just going to get drunk and plow through the rest of it. But if you watch it straight and take it at face value, it is the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. But if you watch it, as I believe it is intended to be, as a parody, it is actually kind of brilliant. It parodies certain anime tropes, like your pretty boy rival. It parodies New York society life, because the place that it's set is basically New York. So, like, if you take it as a parody of these two things, parody of anime, parodies of high society life, it is actually really funny. The dialogue is played so straight, so flat. Like, the main character emotes so poorly because he's supposed to be like the angsty guy. It's actually pretty funny. And
are we sure that's not just Jaden Smith as a bad voice actor?
I'm not sure that it's Jaden Smith actually acting. I didn't sit down to look at the cast yet, but I'm pretty sure I heard some very recognizable voices in there that I haven't had a chance to look up yet. So I was actually a little bit impressed, because, again, the everything about it is just so bad that it's good. And I think that's how it's meant to be taken. It's meant to be taken as a parody.
So it's less The Room and more Street Fighter.
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of like that. But again, I think I would enjoy it even more if I was inebriated. I was at the gym, and I was kind of not wanting to laugh too loud because, other people judging me, staring at me like I'm a weirdo. But yeah, I really want to, like, sit down with a bottle of wine and just plow through it, and what the hell, why not? It's pretty entertaining.
Okay. Anything else to say on it? Because we still got 2 minutes left on it.
God, two more minutes about Neo-Yokio, I guess.
Well, I guess I'll talk about my third party impression of it. The reason why I made the comment that I did earlier is because a lot of the reviews that I'm reading about it are the stuff like, it talks about the role of privilege in society, and how, this wealthy character has such difficulty empathizing with other people's problems. And I'm just reading these reviews and going, I think you're giving this show a lot more credit than it really deserves. I think you're reading a lot more into this than is really there, because all I'm seeing is just another anime where somebody fights a giant monster every now and then.
Yeah, it's like a futuristic society where the main characters comes from a family of, like, people who fight demons and stuff, and that's the only reason why his family is accepted into high society life. But I don't think it's meant to be anything terribly profound. The way I'm reading it is very much just straight up a parody, making fun of, not highlighting, people who are rich can't empathize with other people, so much as just going, look at these assholes.
Everyone's oozing over the Emperor's new clothes, but all we see is a fat, naked old guy.
Okay, sure. You can say words like that.
I'm just saying, it just seems like from the reviews I'm reading, a lot of people are seeing stuff that isn't there. So, but again, like I said, I can't really speak righteously because I've not watched the show.
Yeah, get drunk and watch it. It's pretty good.
I can't get drunk for reasons we've discussed elsewhere, and that's time. All right, now we're gonna get an Ask a Geek watch. We're gonna get an Ask a Geek question next week. Why can't Gonzo drink? All right, what's the next topic in the hat?
All right, we're starting to get only a couple left. This one is Kingsman 2. Our thoughts on Kingsman 2.
Which I actually got a chance to see after not being able to see the first one. So, since you're the veteran of the series and have seen both films, why don't you go first?
Wait, you haven't seen the first film, but you saw the second?
it was kind of an impromptu decision when we couldn't get into the Renaissance Festival on Saturday.
That's strange, but okay, sure. Kingsman 2, definitely not as good as the first film. It is quite absurd like the first film, ultra violent like the first film. I didn't quite like the villain as much, but it was really hard to compete with Samuel L. Jackson because it's Samuel L. Jackson.
No one can compete with Samuel L. Jackson.
Nevertheless, I found her very entertaining. So the bad guys were all cool. My main beef with the villains is that one of the cameo people is Elton John as Elton John, and they spent way too much time putting Elton John on the big screen. And don't get me wrong, I like Elton John, but there's like a certain line where cameos are just cameos. And like it crossed that line, and it kind of wasn't as funny as they thought it was going to be. And
well, I mean, in fairness, once you spent Elton John money, you're kind of obligated.
That's true. And he was fine in it. I mean, it was still funny. It just wasn't... There was just a couple of things where it sort of rubbed me the wrong way that, we could have been focusing on the main characters instead of yet another scene with Elton John.
I'll tell you what I liked about this film, not having seen the first one, just coming to this one. I liked that it was a spy movie that wasn't afraid to have fun with its tropes. Like the thing that I like about the old school Bond films, like from Pierce Brosnan to before versus the Daniel Craig films, is I feel like the Daniel Craig films play themselves just way too seriously. So it was great to see Kingsman and see a spy movie be unafraid to have fun with the tools of its storytelling. And I'll tell you, the way Merlin went out in this movie was...
Oh my god.
You want to talk about a satisfying character death. The only reason I didn't bring that up was because I knew that this topic was in the hat. But I'm telling you what, if that actor ever winds up not able to get work as an actor, he should go into singing, because that man has got a set of pipes on him. I could listen to him sing Country Road all day.
I love Mark Strong so much, and I really love him in the role. And I just think he's so brilliant and sardonic and wonderful. I really liked The Statesman, which was a major plot point of the show, was The Statesman. I was just sad that Tequila wasn't in it more, because, I mean, they really hyped him up for the show, for the movie. And then he really wasn't in it that long. And it was more about whiskey than tequila. And can I just talk about how pissed off I was that it turns out, spoiler, at the end, that whiskey was one of the bad guys? Because I'm tired of watching Pedro Pascal die violently in things.
Here's the thing: he wasn't even like working for the drug cartel bad guys. He was just like, you know what? I'm going to do this because, you know what? I like the way this bad guy was thinking.
Yeah,
it's like he wasn't even one of the bad guys. He was just, I feel this way.
Right, and that's what I think Kingsman does nicely, but a little beating you over the head with. The bad guys have intentions that many people would actually agree with. The first movie, because you didn't see it, was Samuel L. Jackson wants to kill a lot of the population of the world because of climate change, and wants to get rid of, wants to curb climate change by eliminating a bunch of people, basically a culling. To help protect the earth. And the second one was, we want to legalize certain drugs because the war on drugs is a failed effort that hurts a lot of people.
So, but yeah, it was, I really enjoyed it, and I've got to go back and see the first one now. But like I said, it was my chief joy with this film was like, it was good to see a spy movie be not afraid to be over the top and have fun with itself.
And you'll like the first one because they literally talk about spy movies in the first one. Colin Firth and Samuel L. Jackson have an exchange about, I love old spy films. Like, they literally have this conversation. It's so great.
Okay. Let's see. Anything else to say about it in the 10 seconds we have left on this topic?
No. Just, I'm ready for yet another one. I need to...
All right, and that's time. Okay, what's the next topic in the hat?
All right, let's see. Okay, oh god. What's the deal with clowns? Between the Clowns here last year and its revival, what the fuck? And then the American Horror Story, isn't that that thing?
Yeah, the American Horror Story cult is supposed to be about clowns. Though I'm unsure if they're talking about the actual clowns or the way the two main characters behave. Because oh my god, no human being who's allowed out into the world behaves the way the people in this show do. My god. Okay. But that's a story that's discussed for a different table. But yeah, it seems like clowns are the new zombies. They're just kind of starting to appear everywhere, and I'm kind of wondering what's up with that.
In reflecting, I remember Poltergeist was remade like 2 years ago, maybe, and the thing that they chose to feature of all of the villainous creatures and oddities of that film, they chose to put the clown on the front of the cover for the film and the advertising and stuff. And I just kept thinking that the clown was not even close to the scariest, most traumatizing thing in the original one. So I really hope that the remake didn't focus on the clown when it could have been focusing on all of the actual fucking bodies in the pool. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Clowns are generally scary, and there's like deep psychological reasons for that. Clowns are disguised. They're hiding themselves. You can't read them because they're wearing masks and makeup. And I don't know how that translated into horror tropes. I don't know when that started, but there was also a serial killer who was dressed up as clowns, would kill people.
I believe that was either Ed Gein or Ted Bundy. Someone in the comments sound off on which of those two it was, but I know it was one of those two.
Yeah, so that was, there was literally a serial killer. So clowns have long been instilled in our pop culture as being scary, but why the last couple of years, and especially this year, or the last year, have clowns come back? It's hard to say. I mean, I as soon as they said they were remaking it is when I think I started hearing the stories in the news about people dressed as clowns freaking people out. But I don't know if there was something else that prefaced that.
Which I am betting money now that both it and American Horror Story are out, I'm betting money that clown scare that we had was actually some kind of viral marketing for one of those two properties. Right. I will bet hard money. I'm leaning towards American Horror Story because that's the kind of over-the-top shit based on what I've seen, that's the kind of over-the-top shit that show would do. But I would not be surprised if it was marketing for either one.
Yeah, but nobody ever came out and claimed it or owned up to it. So, I mean, obviously, at some point, it just became copycats from people who were just doing it to get on the news or whatever. But who's the one who decided to? I mean, maybe it was just some crazy person, and everything else after that was copycats. But fuck you guys, whoever decided to do that, because clowns are creepy.
See, I'm really disappointed that Brian isn't here for this discussion, because I kind of sort of accidentally discovered that I think he hasn't confirmed. I think he actually has a fear of clowns, because one time I posted something clown related on his Facebook, and he just came back with just "fuck you." So I'm pretty convinced that if he was here for this discussion, he'd just be saying "fuck clowns" over and over and over again.
Yeah, Jesus.
So, but yeah, no, it's weird. Because, like, okay, the zombie thing, okay, I got that. We got a George Romero film. We also got the Shaun of the Dead at about the same time. Walking Dead was getting really popular. They had the Resident Evil game, so it made sense for zombies to be a big thing. So okay, that kind of made sense, and it's easy to tell stories with zombies. They can substitute for whatever evil in the world you wish to criticize. Clowns. Not so much. I don't see how you can make an argument about clowns representing, an over-reliance on consumerist culture, a la Land of the Dead. But so it just seems like the thing is, like, I can't figure out any sort of catalyst for this.
I mean, in it, especially the remake, it represents something beyond just a monster. It actually represents. I can't think of what it is, because I just remember reading that, and I'm like, oh yeah, it represents this and that, and I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. I guess I should actually watch this film eventually.
And that's time.
Yeah, so that's that.
All right. What's the next topic in the hat?
We actually only have one topic left, And it is... Oh, this one's all you, buddy. It's Cuphead.
I've been waiting so long for this game. So anyone who's listened to the episodes that we did on Bugs Bunny and the tribute that we did to June Foray when she passed knows I am a huge mega fan of classic golden age of animation cartoons, like 1930s to 50s Disney and Warner Brothers. So when Cuphead was first announced and shown, my first reaction was unbridled joy to see how a video game would work with this animation style, and then unbridled anger when it was initially announced to be an Xbox One exclusive. It's like, oh, do I really want to pay $400 for a console just to play this one game? But then it got ported to Steam, so yay, I got a chance to play it, and it came out actually the day before my birthday, so hell of a birthday present. And I am absolutely loving it so far. I'll tell you what, I'm getting my ass kicked, not just because the game is already punishingly difficult, but because I'm getting too distracted at how pretty the animation is and how faithful it is to the Golden Age style, that I'm actually not paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm just like, oh, hey, look, that acorn that's about to fall on me and kill me has got a grimace face on it. That's that's so 1930s Disney, and I'm dead now.
You're so busy looking for all the Easter eggs. Dead.
Not even Easter eggs. I'm just admiring how faithful everything is. Now there are a few things that kind of take me out of it, like there's the odd projectile here and there that might get thrown at you that doesn't quite fit in with the rest of the art style. But I mean, that's just limitations of the engine. But oh my god, like it's so beautiful and so seamless otherwise. Like, it really feels like you're playing around in a 1930s Betty Boop cartoon. And the thing is like, they don't miss a beat on any of this. The music is the old, 20s and 30s style swing / jazz style that was in all those old cartoons. You see shades of like, old school Walt Disney, Bob Clampett, Tex Avery in the animation. And it's just, oh god, I could go on about the animation all fucking day. But I've only got 2.5 minutes. Gameplay-wise, it plays a lot like the old school Mega Man games. It's definitely, if you're going in expecting expecting straight platforming, you might be a little bit disappointed because the game's actually more of a boss rush. But each of the bosses is really creative, and it's just a joy to see. The game in general is just one of the most creative things I've ever seen in gaming. It's definitely it's one of those mind-blowing moments that we were talking about earlier, about things that really open your eyes to what the medium can do. And it's just this game is just it's pure joy to play through. Like, everything from the animation to the music to the control, it's all just polished to a mirror shine, and then has a 1930s film filter placed over it. But I mean, I can't even put into words how much I enjoy this game. That's how out of my mind this game is driving me. But yeah, it's definitely a game that you've got to be willing to have some patience and to play, and you've got to maybe have like a cold drink next to you to calm you down, because it is a game that it will break you over its knee until you get a handle on its patterns. I've put I think 3 hours into the game, and I've beaten maybe 3 of the bosses.
Damn.
Just because of how, again, part of that is because the game is difficult, and the other part is like, oh wow, look, it's so pretty. Oh look, look at the way they painted the sky, and I'm dead.
Why is it called Cuphead?
Because the main character is a little cartoon whose head is a coffee cup, okay. and his brother is named Mugman for the same reason. And
my god, that's adorable.
And the story goes that they actually, if they're these two brothers, that they wind up wandering into a casino, and they wind up throwing dice with the devil, and they either, in order to keep from having to give the devil their souls, they've got to go out and collect the souls of the devil's other debtors. And those are the bosses that you have to fight. it's pure 1930s silliness. And if you're a fan of classic animation or old school platform gaming, Mega Man style gaming, I definitely recommend picking it up. And that is time. As I shut my alarm up. Okay, and I don't want to start a new one. All right, so yeah, that's about all the time that we have. I think that's all the topics we have in the hat, isn't it?
That is it. We did all of them. Go us.
Alrighty, yep. Alright, so that's all the topics in the hat, and that is all the time that we have for this week for Nerd to the Third Power. We will see you guys next week. Thank you, as always, for tuning in. As always, I'm Dr. Gonzo.
I'm the cat.
We'll see you next week. Taka, play us out.